I want to tell you a story. Promise I'll make this quick. 11 years ago, I was working in corporate America. I had just finished reading the online copy of Dr. Eric Thomas's The Secrets to Success. I was pumped, I was motivated, and I was ready to take the world by storm. You know, I had never made more than $2,200, $2,400 in a month, but I was ready. I had no idea, I would get to a point where I'm grateful for it, but $10,000 months, they don't impress me anymore. It's a good month, but I know it's not the best that I can do, the best that I can be. And I know this because I just came off of a $10,000 month, just a little over $10,000 month in July. The difference between 2026 and 2020, 2015 is that money doesn't go as far as it used to post-COVID. And it's not just post-COVID, it's also, the fact that the dollar bill is decreasing in value, and it has been for decades. There's some idiots out there that just see the income that I post and they think, oh, you're making all this money, you should do X, Y, and Z. And that tells me that they don't know jack squat about business. And they never made that kind of money themselves, because if they were, they wouldn't be pocket watching me or be so fascinated with what I make. But that really isn't the point of this video. The point of this video is why 11 years later, I still believe you owe you. Now, for the people out there that I was just talking about, this message is not for them. This message is for people who are trying to do better. And it's so funny, I've been investing in a business coach this year. I've made a number of investments over the years. Some have panned out, others have not. This one is different. I know it is. I can tell it's already generated a bunch of results. Now just working towards generating the income. But I'm very excited about this opportunity that I've invested in. My business coach, when he actually reached out to me, it would technically be yesterday. And he sent me a brief case study. It was like an image with text. Brief case study about a DoorDash driver who did an experiment. He worked all day from, I think, 8 a.m. to 9:15 p.m. He only stopped for 2 30-minute breaks. 2 to use the bathroom, and I think he ate on the move. And after that entire day of work, he made $215 gross. That's before you account for things like taxes, insurance, the price of gas, which is through the roof because of the Iran war and so on and so forth, right? $215 after like a 13-hour shift. This guy literally went and became a slave, essentially, for $215, and that's before you account for all his expenses. After his expenses, he probably made about, who knows, $70-some for 13 hours of work. And I remember thanking my coach for sending that to me, and I said, hey, how can I use this? He was like, I think this would go good in your presentation that we put together. Now, for context, I have this role that I do. I actually talked about it in a previous video where I make $65 an inspection, and the inspection itself takes me 5 minutes, and the paperwork that I have to submit, the electronic paperwork, takes maybe about 10 to 12 minutes total. That includes labeling the pictures and doing the report and submitting it. So we're talking less than a half an hour of work, and I'm making $65 start to finish, not including drive time. For context, there's another role that I did yesterday morning. I literally stood around and babysat an adjuster. I stood in for a public adjuster who would have been there, but he wasn't there, so he paid me $150 to be there. I didn't have to do any paperwork. I didn't have to turn in any additional photos because I had done this before. I had already been there before I got the photos and measurements. And I could have done it while I was there this time, but regardless, if you put those two trips together and make it one appointment, I still got paid $150 to just stand around essentially and babysit another adult and make sure that he didn't do anything that would have put the insured in a compromising position, because that's the goal of the public adjuster, to protect the interests of the insured against the insurance company, right? $150 just to stand around and do nothing. Even if I got photos and measurements, it wasn't a labor-intensive role. And these are the lower end paying opportunities that exist in insurance adjusting. The lower end opportunities. These are not the higher end. As I said before, like the most I got paid, I got paid $3,000 cash this year. Nobody pays in cash until they do. And I got paid $3,000 in cash on the casino floor, not because it was a casino, not in relation to casino activity, but that's just where I met the contractor who I wrote an estimate for. And I actually was going to charge him a lesser rate. And he actually told me, I'll pay you between 6 to 8% of the estimate total. Well, I wrote an estimate for like 52, 54 grand. The insurance company paid out like 46 grand, and I walked away with $3,000 cash. Yeah. That was a good day. I was very proud of that. And again, if one person will pay you for that kind of value, more than one person will as well. How do I know this? I've been writing estimates for contractors off and on for years. Most of them haven't paid me what that guy paid me, but then I had a guy last year pay me even more than the guy paid me this year. The guy last year didn't pay in cash. He made 2 direct deposit payments, which totaled $4,728. And yes, I have the screenshots of that as well. So when you put yourself into a position where you offer value, sky's the limit. And then you find different ways to market and monetize that value. That's the key, instead of just waiting for opportunities to come to you. Because if I didn't mention this before, the guy who paid me that $4,728, I didn't even solicit him for work. I was there doing another job, and he came up to me and patted me on the chest and said, I'm going to hire you. Not I want to hire you. Will you work for me? I'm going to hire you. And when I told him what I charged, he said, you're not charging enough. Those are the kind of people you want to be in the company of. But you can't get into the company of those people until you're providing enough value. This is a life lesson I had to learn on my own. I'm not some extraordinary, amazing person. I'm an above average man with above average ambitions. But overall, I'm not necessarily an above average person, like performer. I just strive to do my best, and I seek to learn lessons from my experiences. And that's why 11 years later, I still believe Dr. Eric Thomas's lecture where he said, you owe you. Remember, I started out this video saying that I 11 years ago, I just finished reading Dr. Eric Thomas's The Secret to Success, the online PDF version. And I wanted to see how high I could reach for. I wanted to see what was possible. Like I said, I had no idea that I would achieve the things that I've achieved thus far. That I continue to reach for, that I continue to pull down, but here I am. Yes, it costs a lot sometimes. It costs late nights. It costs an insane amount of sacrifice sometimes. But it allows me to be a single the single breadwinner of my family. And it's work. But long ago, I wanted more for myself than what I was repeatedly finding myself running into, which was temp jobs, direct hire jobs, clashing with bosses, dead end opportunities. I wanted better for myself. So I went out there, I sought it, and I got it. And I continue to, knock down opportunities. I have companies calling me, throwing work at me. I got to reject work sometimes. I rejected a claim in Washington, D.C. yesterday. I rejected, claims in Virginia like 2 days ago. Because I'm just like, I'm not driving all the way down there. Gas is too high. It's not worth it. It's not like, it's just not worth it. And even if you guys were paying better, right? It's not worth the time I'm going to spend away from my family. And speaking of which, and I'll wrap up with this, right? I got a claim that I've been working on in Baltimore, Maryland. My cut after the firm I work for gets their share is $90 an hour. For drive time, I'm making $45 an hour just to drive, and I had to go down there twice. So I get paid to drive to and from there 2 times at $45 an hour. Opportunity is out there. Like Alec Baldwin said, you pick it up, great. You don't, I don't feel sorry for you. Is people saying I can't find work? Well, there's ways to find work. Sometimes you have to talk to somebody who knows, who's been in the industry, who's got the connections. I run a weekly Eventbrite meeting. It's not free, but it's not expensive. It's $47. I'll add the link to the bottom of this video. My time is valuable. If I'm going to sit around and give information out, it's going to be at a cost. But the information will be worth it. It always is. And I don't need to prove myself to anybody. I don't need anybody to buy my Eventbrite because I got so much work I can barely keep up with it. I'm already making good money for the work that I do. That's the facts. I'm not begging anybody to do anything. You do it, great. You don't, that's okay also. So I just want to wrap this up by saying, this may sound like it comes out of left field, but I really do want the best for my kids. All of them. I got a child that's about to hit textbook definition of adulthood. I don't think it's adulthood, but I just want the best for him. I don't want his gifts necessarily. I don't want his money. I want him to wake up and realize I owe it to myself to be the best version of myself, to put myself in the best version that I can to succeed, to remember every day that he wakes up. My parents won't always be here. I got to take the lessons that they taught me, absorb them into my identity so I can live a happy, productive life as free of stress as possible. And to the people listening and watching this, I just want you to understand, if somebody like me can do this, you can do this and you can do better, because I've done this without a roadmap. So I created a roadmap. It's funny, my book is sitting right here. I didn't sit here to pull this up, but I've talked about this before. This is the book I wrote, I published. I'll include a link to that as well in the description of this video. I wrote a roadmap, the roadmap that I needed when I started in the industry, so that people who came in behind me wouldn't have to struggle the way I did. It's got great reviews. I'm very proud of it. I had a guy buy my book freaking not even 5 minutes after I met him at a claim not even a month ago. It was incredible. I just was there talking to the parents. They were like, hey, how'd you get into the industry? I start talking. This old grown man walks through the back door. They were like, oh, son, you should hear this guy talk. He was like, oh, I was listening the whole time. He comes, sits down. 5 minutes later, I told him I got the book. He's buying the book on Amazon. People want the information. When you want better, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. The teacher's always been there, but I can only show you the door. Morpheus said it best, you're the one that has to walk through it. But I'm not here to sell you nothing. I don't need your money. I'm doing just fine on my own. I want the best for you. I know what it's like to struggle, Look, man, the end of last month, I just paid 2 months of rent in 2 days. And then I turned around and gave my business coach $1,000. Okay? I'm on my way to a studio presentation. I just got another $3,500 to pay off, and I got $2,000 of that getting paid off in like a week. All right, you know, the money opportunities out there. You know, you pick it up, great. You don't, I got no sympathy for you. Because unlike me, I didn't have a God in the beginning, so I became the God I needed. And if you're interested in learning more, I'll see you inside the link below. Peace.